podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Bjork, your host, here with AW Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Bjork and AW Schultz.
Keep it natural. Okay, we are recording.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I said episode 2.
Oh, episode two. Okay. Yes, we are here with episode 2. AW Schultz, Alexandria Bjork. All right. We went into what is Industry 5.0 a little bit. We're just scratching the surface and more to come there, obviously. But I think it is important for everybody to understand and kind of get a history on what led up to this point. We started talking about that at the end of episode 1. So I thought that was a great place to pick up here going into the beginning of episode 2. But before we get into the fun stuff on kind of the history and the events and revolutions that led us to this point where we are now, I would like to share a little bit about each other's background. So I would like, of course, to hear kind of some of the stuff that you shared in your original talk, some of the things that we've talked about. So AW, what is your background? How did you get sucked up into this world? And how did we get here with you first?
Yeah, you kind of put the nail on it when you bring that up. It's like, why are they so interested in this stuff? And the idea is like, well, it's been part of our life for me, it's been 20 plus years, or almost 2.5 decades. And I started working in a mill when I was like 15 or 16.
Where was this?
This was in Carrington, North Dakota.
Okay, so you're from
And
North
I think I held every position. I even worked in the accounting department. I worked in the warehouse. I worked in the mill. My first job, and I'm working on the story for this, was counting to 10, because I had to count to 10. That's how many lasagna slices went in a box.
Oh my God.
And that's all I did all day long. It was horrible for a teenage boy to be going through that.
Oh my God. The level of concentration and mindfulness, though, that you must have developed is probably unmatched.
No, it's horrible. It was bad. I was a horrible employee. I mean, I'm surprised I didn't get fired. But then I came back and they had me filling up totes of pasta, and I just continued working there. And I finally I think my senior year in high school, I actually worked in the accounting department, and actually took some knowledge away from, doing some finance within manufacturing. But then I decided to go to school for it.
Why not? Why wouldn't you?
Why? Yeah, I didn't know anything else. I mean,
Yeah.
it's either be a professional athlete, which I lacked athleticism, but or something else.
Obviously, manufacturing. No, there's no other way about it, right?
Very safe, yeah. And then I worked for General Mills for a few years, and then I worked for PepsiCo. Worked my way up there into a corporate roles, and then I left them to, bigger, better things for another food manufacturing company. And then I finally went into consulting, and now I'm doing my own consulting practice on the side. And then I'm talking with you about manufacturing, which, all throughout the realm, it's always been exciting to me.
Yeah.
To geek out on it. And there's a community like yourself and me, we actually talk about that. So go on about yourself. Like, how did you geek out? Women in manufacturing is it's that unicorn out there. There's not a lot into that. Please take that as a compliment.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Honestly, I was saying, yeah, we're unicorns over here. So it all started with just kind of probably my grandpa, to be honest. So my grandpa came out of the Navy, and instead of like going back to school and becoming a dentist, which everybody seems to regret for him. He's since late, but they all regret that he didn't go back to school to be a dentist. So he ended up at this chemical manufacturing business and not far from their house, because it was the 50s, and that's what you did, is you worked wherever you could basically walk to, or they didn't have many cars. So he ended up
Sorry,
there.
what kind of chemicals were there?
um
I can tell we're all interested in that.
like
Do you remember?
like pure, like asphalt,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, stuff like that. Epoxies,
Okay.
I should know because I ended up working there. So 3 generations of us worked there. um my dad worked there in the plant and learned all the things, started as a maintenance man and ended up becoming the plant manager. And then I had a summer job there. And what I actually did, which was pretty interesting, was I cataloged all these chemicals. So I took scans of these chemicals and I found the proper fingerprint of these chemicals. And that's what the QA lab would use to decide if they could put that out into the world or if it had to get rerun. So that was like the beginning of it.
What
And
age? What age?
I was probably 18 when I did that job. Yeah.
And was your grandfather still working there at the time?
No, he had retired. My dad had moved on to different types of actually sales. And then, so I did that job in college, and then I started getting into the trucking side of things and doing a lot.
Logistics.
Yeah, and doing a lot with DOT compliance. And then that segued into the mechanics of the vehicles themselves. So one of the things I would do is go and walk around underneath semi trailers and say the brakes are bad, this needs to be checked. And I would do a lot of that in my earlier part of my career. So very
What's a
boutique.
what's a bad break look like?
Correct. Rusted.
Rust.
Yuck.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would look pretty obvious. Yeah. So I did a lot of that, and then eventually just started taking larger and larger roles at the company that I'm with, and never left. So here I am, and I'm ready for kind of the next chapter of my life. I know that there's some things brewing for me in the consulting space, so that's one of the reasons I think that we have that in common. And then just some other stuff, like how can I help people in business? How can I help businesses in business? And that's really what I'm focused on now, is helping businesses provide better benefits to their employees, having employees have better access and you know, more convenient services for healthcare, and getting the care that they need from sometimes the manufacturing floor. So it's just a really exciting transition. And I just can't wait to watch it unfold here.
Yeah, and I know we're saving this for another episode, but just going into different ways that you can save money that doesn't cost the business money.
Yeah.
And that's my hint into some of our segues into later episodes that
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about, is how your business can make money
Yeah.
and not having to spend it, and your employees will be gratefully happy that
Yeah.
these are some of the things that can be offered that don't cost anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we talked about a couple of different ideas from both of our backgrounds and things that we've both implemented in our 15, 20, two decades, probably 5 combined decades of experience that we share together on things that we've done and seen work really well and cost zero or little. So you're right. I can't wait to get into some of those later episodes that we'll be releasing here. I wanted to know though, okay, so we got the background on who we are, how we landed in this minute, in this moment that we're in, the snapshot in time. And one of the things is that I think has been interesting for me, and I drew me to you, is the in-depth knowledge that you have on the history of industry and the kind of tipping points from one moment to the next, from one trend to the next. So can you educate me and everybody else on kind of where it all started and how we got to this moment right here that we're in?
Okay, well, listen up. Here it comes.
Okay, I'm ready.
So when I first started talking about Industrial 5.0, which we talked about in episode 1, I, I originally started talking about 5.0, and I thought it'd be a great intro to books and blogs and other interesting things on that. But I wasn't really drawn into it. I just thought it was a theme. So I did talk about it. I wrote about it and I blogged about it and I did all that stuff. But then I started had to do more research into it. And I understood that there are actually evolutions that have occurred in manufacturing. And you think about manufacturing, it's usually kind of that's the tipping point of when things start to change in society. Um, Technology is advancing. So to give you a little history about it, 1 through 4. The first one, it occurred around, so you can't really put a pinpoint on it. You can't put a tack into a timeline onto it. But if you want to say around the 1780s, 1790s, that's around the time where, just to give you a little history on it, this around Europe, there was a shortage on labor because everything was being done by hand. And France and Europe, or France and British were at war. Slavery was predominant. And it led to, we don't necessarily know exactly how, but a lot of innovative individuals were coming forth. And one of the earliest things that drove this was the way to capture energy through steam and the introduction of coal and how it can be mass used to create that energy. Within that, there was also the idea of the textile energy or industry. So the ability to make the cloths and out there, the mills for that, and the ability to mass produce it. There was also around the same, 20 some years, the sifting machines that for grains to be mass processed. And that kind of led the way for Industrial 1.0. So if you go forward another 100 years before we'd see something different, we talk about 2.0. And again, we're jumping now into the 1900s. Around the time World War I, the need for more resources is prevalent. And again, there was another need for energy, and the evolution of electricity came into effect.
Yeah.
So you think about Thomas Edison and the work that he had done, and the works with the extended railroads, the way to communicate through telegraphs.
Yeah.
Also, the idea of mass production, manufacturing, because of the war.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is a lot of societal or individual inventions or societal trends, like you mentioned, precede these changes that echo and have these ripple effects throughout manufacturing.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what it
And
is.
they cascade into the society.
Yeah. So at first it bleeds, it's this amazing invention, electricity. And then that gets leveraged throughout the manufacturing space and becomes commonplace. And then there's the next mass production, like you were saying, and then that gets leverage across all of manufacturing. And this is how the snowball kind of is just continually rolling downhill, in other words.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Oh,
So then you move into that's Industrial 2.
yeah.
We go to Industrial 3.0. 3.0 was there wasn't a war that really introduced it, but it was technology that was applied to it.
Okay.
And for me, I was around during that time. We're talking around the 1970s, 1980s, where the inventions of the circuit board, electronics, computers, big frames, in some cases, robotics were being applied. So it really moved into the manufacturing of high-speed automation. And that's what kind of led to it. The computers became more accessible and they're able to troubleshoot and transform. And then 4.0, which is probably most of this audience can relate to. Again, we can say around that 2000s area.
Yeah.
Where the idea of taking information and putting it into the cloud, take that information out of the cloud. I've told the story many times.
Yeah.
Running algorithms on it. The idea that these manufacturing have sensors, robotics, intelligence, and make these decisions. You can argue we're still in industrial 4.0 right now. And where I get excited is we talk about we're seeing that shift. And that's what I'm passionate about, is that the European Union recognized that 5.0 was about where it was about people and profit. Now it's about purpose with the planet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and particularly in the US, we're not seeing that, but there's early signs that are going through with Europe and India that, we're evolving into industrial 5.0.
Yeah.
And so 4.0 is, it's that resilient thing. It's taking all that technology and applying more purpose to it, which goes into 5.0. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that was great. I'm glad that you shared that. And, as you were talking, I was thinking about an opportunity. There was a role I was interviewing with Yeti for. And
Cool.
yeah, it was really cool. So I would have been your neighbor in that sense, because they're based out of Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things that stood out for me, and what I see as a not a trend, but like a new business requirement, is the social component. So like you're talking about, what are you doing for the planet? What are you doing for the people? And when I was at a wealth conference for short-term rentals and just overall mindset and improving, and just being the best version of you, I want to say his name is it Damien from Shark Tank? He was there. He was there and did the keynote speech. And he had made a real great insight, and I've just kept this in the back of my mind. I think about it with the Yeti thing as well. So they were creating products out of plastic pulled from the ocean. That was like the whole procurement role was to source recycled or otherwise what would have been trash to produce the finished goods. In Damien's insights that he shared at the conference, he was talking about it's all about your social impact. So Bombas, I love Bombas. One of my goals in life is to only be able to only buy Bombas for my socks. Not only because they're
Sorry, what did you say?
Bombas, the socks, Bombas. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, is that the one where you buy one and they give one to somebody else?
Yeah. Their socks are incredible,
Are they?
but
Oh, I've never had one.
you gotta get one, but be careful, because once you do, you'll never want to wear another pair of socks. It's toxic in a
Let that
certain way.
problem
Like,
happen.
you just can't have it. You just can't have it. But they give a pair of socks, like you said, it's like the Toms, buy a pair of shoes, give a pair of shoes. The Yeti pulling plastic out of the ocean to create, a cup that reduces plastic on the go forward. These are the trends that get me really excited and really make me proud to be a part of the entrepreneur and the business community that's working to drive those types of behaviors versus the past and the prior pollute the oceans and who cares, profit first, we'll worry about the earth later. That's what gets me really excited, is those innovations paired with positive social impact that just seem to be all the more common and becoming more of the popular companies.
So Alexander, write it down. I'm gonna write it down. Episode, whatever we're gonna say, circular economics. That's what
Oh
we're talking about.
okay,
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I've done a couple of YouTube videos on it where I talk about where for many years, so up to Industrial 4.0, kind of bringing us back to it.
Yeah.
It's been linear. 5.0 is circular. So how can we take what we made today, the textile is so
Fast
bad
fashion.
for the environment, but we need it. We have to wear clothes. And how can we reuse that kind of those fabrics and those things and to the next generation and how to make it up there. So that's another interesting topic that I'd certainly think we should dive into
Absolutely.
in the upcoming episodes.
That's amazing. I love it. These are great. I noted circular economics before we went live here. We were talking about ventures gone wrong to touch on our entrepreneurial journeys. I would love to talk about textiles because I've seen some trends on social media with younger influencers kind of
Yes.
use fabrics and then like making these very one of a kind pieces, and it's a whole thing. So I would love to talk more about that as well. That's a great history. So the tipping point you're seeing between, or the shift in trends from 4 to 5, you're saying is for the people first, like those things, leveraging technology in a new way, or the information that we have in a new way. So can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
4, I mean, it's technology. It's taking that out there.
Yeah,
5 is recognizing that there's people still a part of it.
yeah,
And companies that recognize that a human-centric approach, that companies, I mean, you talked about Yeti, like
yeah,
you would have been proud to be part of them because
yeah,
they've got a great mission and what they're going after.
yeah,
I the same with me. The companies I do for, I I don't want to say companies out there by name, but I mean, there's certain companies that I would not work for because
yeah,
I don't believe in their mission.
yeah,
And there's a lot of case studies out there, especially today, the last 5 years. Oh, there's the Great Resignation, another episode we could talk um, about just people that, especially the newer generations, like, I don't have to work for you. I want to
yeah,
work for somewhere I support and I engage with and I follow. And that's to me what a lot of what Industrial 5.0 is leading into. And I think we're going to see it in the next few upcoming years.
yeah.
Um,
So what you're talking about is an interesting key, right? So part of driving profitability requires top talent. And if you're
yeah,
not a mission-driven, purpose-driven organization, you're not going to attract the top talent. You're not going to attract the younger generations with the innovation and the drive to bring those things to life. So not only are you potentially sacrificing on market share by not being purpose and mission driven, but you're equally sacrificing the ability to attract top talent.
yeah. And you know what? Data supports that salary, certainly you have to survive, but it's not the leading driving force of what's driving the next generation to what the work they want to do is.
Right. And I would even add to that that what we're talking about here is not ping pong tables and draft beer in corporate offices. What we're talking about is going to work for an organization that you feel is making a positive impact, serving the purpose that supports your values and your core, like the core values of the person who wants to work there, versus just
Yeah.
going somewhere and punching a clock and collecting a paycheck. We're not talking about that, and we're not doing that. Businesses, in order to stay competitive and survive, need to be purpose driven.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And you think about it, you kind of open it up. There's like sometimes people also are interested like having time to themselves. Like how often do they say like you got to be in the office from 8 to 5,
yeah,
and half the time people aren't doing anything. They can get their work done in so many hours.
yeah,
I've in my consulting, I get the chance to go around the United States, and I'm amazed that they've got different guidelines since COVID, where a lot
yeah,
of times there's people that they only come to the office 3 days a week, but they're
yeah,
still they're still meeting all those demands, and there's it's to me it's a nice little gift to give them back as a company that you're still getting the value out of them.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, you got to have reasonable goals that they're going after.
Mhm.
But quality of life is given back to them, and I think that's what people appreciate more these days.
Absolutely. I mean, I know for sure there's all kinds of different theories and different approaches to that. So I guess in your experience in the companies that you've worked with, what would you say is the most relaxed policies, some of the most relaxed employee policies, like whatever comes to mind, and what did you find to be the most strict, like almost off-putting and like surprising that people are still willing to abide by these requirements or these rules?
The one that comes to mind, and I'm sure I can be fact checked on this, but I met a friend of mine, I'll call him. We were consulting together. He worked for General Electric.
Mhm.
And this is probably Google these things. Like General Electric says you can take as much vacation as you want.
The unlimited PTO. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
unlimited PTO. And probably honestly, the harshest probably folks that work in a union environment that are stuck to a union contract, that they're paid by the hour, and it's
Show up and get
not
paid
about
or
them.
otherwise don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. One of the strictest requirements I've ever heard of is that women were required to wear pantyhose with their skirts.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. Like I was
Not
like,
recently, but I have.
oh, no. Like this is like a current policy that's in place at a
Oh,
company that I'm fully aware of and I had friends working at.
okay.
Like they were salary employees that had to punch a clock and women had to
Oh.
wear pantyhose. Crazy
So they
that
had to wear a dress then too? Is that?
I don't recall if the dress was required, but I know that if you were to wear a dress or a skirt, you had to wear pantyhose, no bare legs.
Okay.
That's crazy to me. But
Toed shoes, no open toe, or
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I
because we're in
don't.
manufacturing, so we do have those requirements.
There are rules. There are
Yeah,
some.
there are rules to that. Couldn't I?
Yeah.
So I do know a lady that she owns a company that tries to make fashionable steel toe shoes, and I think that's an
Really?
awesome idea. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, I would love an introduction to her. So sidebar, please introduce me if you're okay with that. Only because I think that'd be an amazing, interesting podcast guest on my other podcast that I do. That'd be really cool. Yeah. Okay, so those are some of the ideas of, Industry 4.0, some of the things that are changing as we go into Industry 5.0, very people-centric, human-centric approach. And it's almost a perfect pairing of people and technology, and really finding a way to harmonize those two brilliant forces to create this amazing circular, no waste economy. That's really what I'm hearing from you, if I had to summarize it.
Yeah, you did it. We could have probably limited this podcast to 2 minutes because you just said it all into that.
No, I wouldn't have been there if I didn't have such clear instruction and details from you. So I think we're coming up on time. Are we clocking out?
Yeah, I think we're clocking out.
All right, we're clocking out. So
We got a lot more stuff to talk about though.
yeah, I don't know. Okay, so guys, cliffhanger, we don't know what's going to be next, but we've got plenty of options between,
Circular economics, it's our failures in entrepreneurship, and just all that motivation and technology and theories that are going forth and within manufacturing. But this is why we call it Factory of the Future.
Yeah, and here we are. We're in the future today.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.